1. So at the time I was 18 years old, female and, not to be arrogant, but a reasonably attractive girl. My brother and I are a similar age, he's 3 years older, so I hang out with his friends from time to time because I get on well with all of them. This particular Neckbeard was my brother's friend from college. He was skinny rather than fat, but had an awful neckbeard, bad acne, greasy hair, and lots of piercings. I like piercings, but not overkill. Other than that, he was reasonably attractive and fun to be around. He had good fashion sense, and we had a lot in common. And since he had a nice girlfriend at the time, I didn't think I had anything to worry about. I'll just call him Neckbeard. So one day I'm bored and asking around to see who will hang out with me. Neckbeard was the only person free, and he suggested we went to the pub. I was under the impression that he was bringing his girlfriend, I'll call her Jane, but he showed up alone and said Jane was busy. No problem, I'll just have a few drinks with him. We had a nice time chatting for a few hours until he began telling me some really personal stuff about Jane, her upbringing, their relationship issues, etc. I brushed it off and figured he needed to vent to someone. Afterwards, I went home and didn't talk to him until a few days later. He messaged me and my other friend, Harry, to come over to his house for a sleepover. I say sure, so me and Harry go to his house. His house, by the way, was absolutely disgusting. I can't even begin to tell you how filthy and repulsive it was. The carpeted floor was absolutely drowning in dirt and bits of muck. There were dishes stacked up all over the house, mold growing on the walls, stains all over the toilet, and his bedroom was even worse. There were pizza boxes everywhere, his bed was stained and smelled gross. There was even a used condom under his computer desk. What you'd expect from a neckbeard. So anyway, me, Harry, Jane, and Neckbeard watched some TV downstairs. That's when Harry and I become really uncomfortable. Every time Jane spoke, Neckbeard immediately shut her down with a nasty remark or an insult, such as, "Wow, what a stupid thing to say," or, "Oh my god, shut up, no one asked." She didn't seem fazed, which made me believe she was accustomed to being talked to like shit. Harry picked up on this too. At the time, my hair was silver, and I complained that I needed to touch it up as it was washing out. Neckbeard vanishes and comes downstairs with a huge bottle of high-end purple toner, which he says he doesn't need anymore because he used to have silver hair, but had let it grow out to brown again. Little did I know he already said Jane could have it because she wanted to go silver too. But he gave it to me immediately and she never said a word. Eventually he and Jane went to bed, and Harry and I began talking about how awful he was being to Jane, and how filthy his house was. After that sleepover he began texting me frequently. At first it was things related to hair dye, or he'd send me memes which weren't that funny, and I'd send a half-assed reply back because I didn't have much interest in talking to him. This only made him message me more frequently until he would start a conversation every single day, offering to buy me clothes and high-end products for my hair. I complained to Harry and he agreed that he was being seriously dodgy. I started ignoring him and that only made him more persistent. He began inviting me and Harry out for drinks all the time. We'd go to the pub and Neckbeard never ever invited Jane. When we went, according to Harry, he wouldn't even speak to him while I went to the bar or bathroom, and instead sit in silence. Neckbeard and Harry had been friends for 2 years at this point, which is why it was so weird. Then I expressed wanting to quit smoking. Next thing I knew, he bought me an e-cig and liquids to go with it. Harry jokingly complained because he'd also expressed wanting an e-cig, and Neckbeard's response was, "I could only find one for OP." I tried to give him the money, but he would absolutely refuse to accept it. Once while we were out, I was cold, so Neckbeard offered me his hoodie, which was a pricey one. And when I tried to give it back, he flat out refused and said I could have it. He did the same at a later date when he let me have his expensive jacket and insisted I keep it. Then, out of nowhere, he announced to me that he was kicking out Jane and that he was sick of her. He told me he couldn't stand the sight of her. I've left out some details, but recently Neckbeard has started doing some really nasty and humiliating things to Jane in front of all his friends, and she just put up with it. He said that he was forcing her to move out within the month. Little context for you. Jane had no family in the surrounding area because she had left her hometown to live with Neckbeard, and her family had cut her off because of it, so finding a place would be difficult for her. He continued to message me every single day and was getting more and more annoying. Instead of just messages, he'd send big paragraphs in response to every single message I sent him. Even a blunt yes or no would result in him sending an absolute essay of writing that I would never bother reading. He continued to ask Harry and I to meet him, and things were getting more and more awkward. When Jane finally found a place and moved out, he invited me over under the pretense that he had also invited Harry. So I showed up with beers, and turns out it was just him and me. He claimed to have forgotten to invite Harry, but it would still be fun. So I got drunk, and I mean plastered, to get me through the night. This was a terrible idea, because it led to a terrible decision that I will regret until I die. I slept with him. I slept with him once, and immediately after I passed out asleep. In the morning I woke up with a brutal headache, surrounded by the absolute dump of his bedroom, and him begging me to be his new girlfriend. I explained that it was a mistake, a one-night stand, I shouldn't have done it. I promise you I was brutally honest, and I told him I had no interest in pursuing anything else from him. I shouldn't have slept with him in the first place, but all I could do now was be absolutely transparent that I was not going to be his girlfriend. He did not stop messaging me. Not only this, he'd call me crying late at night, saying he hated his life, and he hated Jane's guts and wishes he was dead. He did this every single day for around 2 weeks. It got to the point one time, Harry was round at my house hanging out with my brother and I when he rang. I took the call upstairs and yelled at him to leave me alone. I was shouting so loud that they heard me downstairs. I told him I was sick of the constant smothering and pestering, and that if he didn't leave me alone I was going to block him. He stopped messaging me for about 3 days, until he asked Harry and I to meet him for a drink again so he could formally apologize. I agreed, but only because I felt sorry for him. This was a bad idea. He was absolutely trying to manipulate me. Harry told me that he felt completely used by him as we were on our way to the pub. He said that Neckbeard only invited him because he wanted to see me, and had absolutely no interest in meeting up with Harry without me there too. Neckbeard knew that if Harry wasn't there, I wouldn't be there either. Anyway, we start drinking and he doesn't apologize. He goes on a tirade about how his brother is being tested for cancer, and how scared he is that he might have it. We try to comfort him, but it seemed like he only wanted to bring it up once. After he'd gotten it out of the way, he continued his usual let's ignore Harry and talk to OP only. I'd had a few drinks, so I was making regular trips to the bathroom. Every time I left the bathroom, he was waiting outside on his phone. He kept saying he was waiting for me because he'd gone to the bathroom too. Harry told me later that Neckbeard wasn't actually going to the toilet. He would just stand there outside and wait for me to come out, leaving Harry on his own. We were about to leave when I came out of the bathroom the last time, and he was stood there again. He begged me to go home with him. I said absolutely not, I wasn't interested, no way. We began to leave, and Harry asked me to stay at his house secretly, so Neckbeard didn't hear. Harry and I have always been good friends, nothing more, and have lots of sleepovers. Neckbeard kept trying to convince me to go back to his house, shamelessly in front of Harry. I said no repeatedly, and Neckbeard brought his brother up again, complaining that he's scared he has cancer. I said I'm sorry for his brother. I'd keep him in my thoughts, but I was not going home with him. Later on, we'd learn that his brother was only being tested for cancer because there was a genetic disease that his family carried, which led to everyone in that family getting tested. Neckbeard knew that his brother probably didn't have cancer, as it was a standard test that all his family had taken, but he used it to try and guilt me into having sex with him. He eventually left, and Harry and I got the bus to his house. Whilst on the bus, Neckbeard rang me, still pleading with me, offering to pay for my taxi to his house. I got angry and said no and hung up. He then sent a photo which I opened in front of Harry, and it was a picture of his erect penis. Lovely. I then blocked him because I was so sick of his constant pestering and whining. He wasn't getting the picture, somehow, that I didn't want to be with him. Fast forward a couple of weeks. I'm enjoying a blissfully quiet end to my summer when Jane messages me. She tells me she knows what happened between Neckbeard and I. I tell her I'm sorry for sleeping with him, I was drunk and it was stupid. She responds with,
"There's no excuse for ruining my relationship."
I asked what she meant, and basically Neckbeard told her that we'd had an affair while they were still together. This same day, I received a message from a guy I'd never spoken to, calling me a slut for sleeping with Jane's boyfriend. I went absolutely ballistic. I messaged Harry and he was just as angry. I unblocked Neckbeard and absolutely went to town on him, ripping him to shreds, and forcing him to tell Jane the truth. He acted like she was the one lying at first and afterwards said, "She's such a bitch for being mad at you, I can't believe she actually has the nerve to message you." I told him rather explicitly that he was deluded and needed to get his head tested, because trying to shift the blame onto a justly upset ex was trashy and cowardly. I then blocked him again and didn't speak to him for a while. Jane apologized when she realized what happened, and she and I still talk occasionally. He put that poor girl through hell, and she's so lovely and actually way too good-looking for him. A full year goes by, and I don't hear anything from Neckbeard. He's blocked still, and my brother and his friends have stopped talking to him after they found out what he did to me, and especially what he did to Jane. A couple of months ago, however, he got back in touch with Harry, and they met up with their other friends. Neckbeard apologized for how he treated Harry, and that it was naive of him to waste a good friendship on a girl, me, who would break his heart. He told Harry that I had only given him a one-sided account, that I did in fact have an affair, that I slept with him on 6 different occasions, and that I constantly led him on until I was apparently exposed, and then cut him off. Harry didn't believe it for a second, because he had been with me the whole time. But his other friends bought it, and apparently gave me a whole load of abuse behind my back. Harry told me because he knew I'd want to know. Turns out Neckbeard has a new girlfriend, and I was so tempted to message her and tell her, but I didn't want to stoop to his level. Instead, I messaged Neckbeard and told him to get a life, pack in the lies, or I tell his girlfriend everything, with screenshots. Then I blocked him again. The biggest creep I've ever known in my life. I hope I never see you again, Neckbeard. 2. So today was as hot as Satan's scrotum, and my house doesn't cool very well. So to combat potential heat stroke, I decided to make my own pool day in my tiny little bathroom. I set up a fan outside the bathroom to blow air straight into the open door, to ventilate any steam, and cool me as it hit the water on my skin. I plugged the bathtub drain and set into 2 cheap blue bath bombs for the aesthetic blue color and lovely clean smell. Instead of waiting for the tub to fill via the faucet, I sat under the cold shower and pulled the curtain just enough so that I wouldn't make a mess. It was the oasis I needed from the hellish heat, and it was very blissful for hours. When the water filled up enough to cover my legs, I got the oddly satisfying ASMR feeling, listening to and watching the shower sprinkle and create little white ripples on the surface of the blue water. I recorded it for Snapchat and Instagram. Keep in mind nothing is exposed but my legs, because why not? It was probably the coolest content I could create, no pun intended. A few hours after I posted it to my Instagram, an account with no profile picture whose user was a random assortment of numbers sent me this direct message, copied and pasted into a block quote.
"I take your hand in mine, giving your knuckles a gentle kiss as I tip my hat to you. Good day, milady. I hope you are having a time as beautiful as you are. I just have to say that you are a lovely Aryan specimen, and I would hate to see you be shamed for the lewd video you have posted today. Please take it down before someone else sees it. I would love to get to know you and see more of your bare curvature. Don't keep me waiting too long."
Like, what the hell, dude? It's my submerged legs. My profile picture is literally me imitating the ahegao. And that's way more lewd than a little ASMR video. And who the fuck outside the weeb community uses the word lewd? Let's not even start on the comment about my apparent race, and I don't even know where to begin on his overly wordy send nudes request. And the fucking demanding tone he ended with. Ew. I didn't respond to the anonymous quack, but I did feel the urge to share this with someone. I'm kind of relieved I'm not the only chick getting weird messages, but at the same time, it's just plain sad. I'm blocking the creep as soon as this goes up. 3. Let's get right to it. Here's your cast, abbreviated or changed for privacy. Me, your average Joe, and main character. CC, one of my best friends and female, and prime neckbait, very pretty lady who watches a lot of anime. JP, close friend, chill bro. And Kyle, my hero beard, neckbeard, my hero academia extraordinaire, and former friend. Now off to the story. So CC and I have known each other for about a year prior to this encounter. And I've known JP since my 9th grade year, and I've only known Kyle for about 4 months, as we met in a program I was in over summer. In my state, there are a couple of small nerd conventions that you can get into for free, and my main group goes every once in a while. This time, only a few of us were able to go, those few being myself, JP, CC, and, through a bit of strong-arming into my plans, MHB, who wasn't in the circle, but I talked to here and there. The only person who could legally drive was CC, as she was the only one with a license. Me, JP, and Kyle meet up at a small pizza place before she shows up to pick us up. Kyle wasn't your typical neckbeard in way of looks. He was short and stocky, sort of chubby, but not overweight. He did, however, have a neckbeard, and he had a bit of an odor that I noticed during our program, but I chalked it up to our work, as we worked outdoors a lot in the heat. But damn was it hitting worse outside of that. We're having a casual conversation about any and every anime, and it turns to My Hero Academia, mostly anime. As I'm not reading the manga, and JP doesn't read much manga if there's an anime adaptation. That was the first mistake, and Kyle begins flaunting his knowledge of My Hero and tries to correct us on every little detail. But I ignored this. Bad move. I also never mentioned that Cece was a girl when I told Kyle about the trip, just that I was hanging out with 2 friends. When Cece pulled up, she got out to greet us and Kyle was losing his shit silently. He was smiling and bouncing up and down. After finishing our food, we got into Cece's car and drove away to the convention. The car ride became a shit show. Cece is a huge My Hero fan, but endearing about it. And it's fun talking about it with her. But Kyle had it in his mind that girls liking anime was like a unicorn, not real. He was an asshole about it, all trying to woo her with his knowledge. What he didn't know was that Cece was spoke for, but just didn't have her boyfriend with her. She was visibly annoyed, but it all came to a head when Kyle said something along the lines of, "Nerd girls don't exist. You're just trying to work your way into my heart." That was my and Cece's last straw. I turned to look at him in the back seat and said quietly, "If you don't quit this shit, I will hurt you the next time the car stops." Cece had tightened her grip on the wheel, and JP, who was quiet thus far, said, "Look, John isn't really the type to tolerate this. I think you should stop." Kyle quietly grumbled something about how she'd be with him, and went quiet for the rest of the ride. We parked in a garage across from the con hall and got out. I was way in the front, as I tend to walk quickly when I'm excited for something. That was when I heard it. Cece shouted, "Don't fucking touch me!" To which I turned around to see JP pulling his hand away from the height of Cece's ass. That was it. I quickly walked over and JP let his arm go. I shoved Kyle hard, so hard that he fell backwards. He tried to stand up, but I put my hand in his chest and said quietly, "What do you think you're doing?" He quickly stammers out the words, She shook her ass, so I thought..." Before he finished, I said, "No, shut the fuck up. I don't want to see your face again. And if she says you try to message her, I'm gonna kick the shit out of you." He stood up, wheezing, teary-eyed and red-faced. He said, "She isn't your girlfriend, so she's fair game." And I saw red. I punched him in the chest as hard as I could, and he staggered back, but Cece held me back before I could hit him again. She let me go, and I quietly said, "Get the hell out of here." He started to walk forward, but he walked past me without a word, and that was the last I physically saw of him. In a small group chat between Cece, JP, and myself, she sent us a screenshot of a message from Kyle. essentially saying that he would have her and that he presumed I was dating her, was some asshole who'd never be faithful. I texted him and essentially threatened him until he stopped. And that was the last I ever heard from the annoying fuck. 4. First things first. I'm a trans dude and some people know this. My friend and everyone at my college. But when this happened, I was out to like 5 people. I had this friend, let's call him Daniel, the Neckbeard. We've known each other since forever. He was my best friend. Until he started hitting on me. Daniel is your typical neckbeard. He likes lolly, hentai, smells really bad, has a literal neckbeard, complains all the time that he can't get a girlfriend, etc. At one point he was so desperate that he started hitting on me, saying that we should kiss and hang out, just the 2 of us. I have a girlfriend who I love very much and he knew that. But I just laugh and change the subject. One day though, I'm an artist and I like to draw and paint. I was showing him my new creation. It was a paint of the moon. And Daniel was really into it, like he would tell me that my drawing made him hard, and proceed to send me a picture of, yeah. Let me just say one thing, that dude probably never washed his bits because holy... I could see the dirtiness. I proceeded to block him, etc. The next day, I got a text from my best friend telling me that Daniel contacted her and wanted to talk to me. I explained to her the situation and she was on my side of things. Fast forward to a week later. My old friends are trying to throw a party with only the people from the 7th grade. Daniel was one of them. And they made a group to talk about it and then started to ask how we were now in our lives, etc. I wasn't in the group, but my best friend was, so she told me everything. These people from 7th grade didn't know that I was trans because I live in a very hostile country for LGBTQ+ people, and I wasn't feeling comfortable sharing this information with everyone. When they asked about me, Daniel was the first one to say,
His name is actually Alex now.
And he was doing it on purpose. I could tell he was doing it out of pure anger. He then proceeded to tell people how I've discovered that I was trans, and he told them I wanted surgery and everything. These are things I told him in private. It absolutely destroyed me. I had an anxiety attack because of this, one of the really bad ones. Daniel, if you're listening to this, please stop trying to contact me. I want nothing from you. 5. Me and my friend are both avid cosplayers and share a love for video games, especially Rainbow Six Siege. My friend looked old for her age, and she was cosplaying IQ, and I was going as Bandit. I will be referring to my friend as F, me for me, and N for Neckbeard, J as Jaeger. Me and F were browsing the floor looking at posters, and just kinda looking around. We were stopped for pictures here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary. We were told by a Jaeger cosplayer that an R6 meetup was happening in a few hours, and he just hung around with us while we walked the floor. At one of the booths, I stopped to buy a few patches. While there, after a few minutes, F got a slight tug on the back of her vest, from Neckbeard. Oh hi, am I in your way? No, I want pictures with you. We thought he meant all of us. We all backed away from the booth and stood together for the picture. I just want one with you, dear. Oh, okay. Me and Jay buggered off and I took the photo. But on the last one, he tried to lean in and kiss her cheek. She was wearing a tight bandana over her face, but it still wasn't okay. Dude, what the fuck? What? I just wanted a picture. Don't do that without asking. Cosplay isn't consent. Signs are put up around the con saying this. It is also a common phrase for this con. Alright then. He takes his phone and leaves for now. He follows us around the con all day, not bothering us, but we know he is there. Every time we stopped at a booth, he would offer to buy F a gift or whatever item she seemed interested in, and would often stand right behind her. When we got to the meetup, there were a few other R6 cosplayers there, and we all hung out while we waited for the photographer to arrive. In the meantime, F set down her Prop AUG, which we spent a great deal of work making with wood, EVA foam, and PVC pipes, but the barrel was only PVC with a thin line of EVA around it. He hovered around, and when she set it down, he picked it up shortly after, and no joke, sniffed it. She took notice pretty quickly and tried to tell him to give it back, but he wouldn't budge and said he was just looking at it. Most of the R6 cosplayers were standing near and watching it go down while the Neckbeard kept refusing to give it back. Eventually I got fed up with his BS and tried to take it from him forcefully. Keep in mind we are off-con grounds at this time, so we can't just call security. When I tried taking it from him, I managed to get it mostly from him, but he was holding onto the barrel still, and I yanked it from him but the barrel broke off. And at this point, he was getting yelled at by me, FJ, and a few other cosplayers. I have done nothing wrong, and now you're accusing me of breaking your props. You lead me on all day making me think you liked me and teasing me in your cosplay, when you were just a whore thought. He proceeded to walk away. We took her to cosplay repair, fixed it, and the day went on fine from there. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 35. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And I have to do this next part, it's been stuck in my head since I did the story with the dick pic. I think that last story there was the first time I have ever said thought, at least in that context. Obviously I've used the word thought, but not that kind. That hoe over there, I believe it stands for. I don't know why the hoes have to be in a specific place, but whatever. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna head off for now, so until next time. Thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.